This is what ego death actually means. No mysticism. What if that little voice in your head, the one that narrates your life, worries about the future, and judges your every move, isn't really you? What if that constant stream of consciousness, the very thing you think of as yourself, is more like a piece of software? A program that, under the right conditions, can be temporarily shut down. Now forget everything you've probably heard about mystical journeys and spiritual awakenings. This isn't about chakras or cosmic oneness. We're talking about the raw, verifiable science of what happens when your brain's identity-making machinery goes offline. This is the biological story of what's left when the narrator in your skull finally goes quiet. Section 1. The operating system of you. Before we can talk about its death, we need a purely scientific definition of the ego. And no, it's not about being arrogant or having a big head. In neuroscience, the ego is simply the constructed sense of self. It's the main character in the story you tell yourself every single day. That persistent feeling of being a distinct I, separate from the world and other people. This feeling is so fundamental, we almost never think to question it. But it's not magic. It's the product of a specific network in your brain. Meet the default mode network, or DMN. Think of it as your brain's screensaver. The DMN is a collection of brain regions that lights up whenever you aren't focused on a task in the outside world. It's what kicks in when you daydream, remember your past, stress about the future, or wonder what someone thinks of you. Neuroscientists have pinpointed the DMN as the neurological architecture of the self. It's the machinery that generates your self-narrative, stitching together memories and projections to create the continuous story of you. For daily life, a healthy DMN is essential. It gives us a stable sense of identity and helps us navigate our social lives. But this system can definitely go into overdrive. An overactive or rigid DMN is a hallmark of conditions like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. It's the neurological basis for rumination, getting stuck in those relentless negative thought loops about past mistakes or future disasters. The narrator becomes an inner critic, trapping you in a cycle of self-blame. This is where the idea of killing the ego starts to sound less like a spiritual fantasy and more like a therapeutic breakthrough. Section 2. Pulling the plug on the self. So, if we strip away the mysticism, what is ego death? It's the temporary total loss of your subjective self-identity. It's a state where the brain's rigid model of I dissolves, and the boundary between you and the outside world just fades away. Neurologically, this corresponds directly to a dramatic, measurable drop in the activity and connectivity within the default mode network. For a little while, the central hub of the self is taken offline. Psychedelics like psilocybin and LSD have become powerful tools for studying this state because they can reliably trigger it. A landmark 2016 study from Imperial College London gave participants LSD and watched their brains in real time with fMRI scanners. They discovered that the drug caused a massive drop in DMN activity. And here's the kicker. The size of that drop correlated directly with how strongly participants reported feeling ego dissolution. The quieter their DMN, the more their sense of self seemed to vanish. What happens when the DMN goes quiet is fascinating. It's often described as a reset, or like defragmenting a computer's hard drive. The brain enters a state of higher entropy, meaning its activity gets more random and less predictable. While the DMN becomes less integrated, the global connectivity across the brain actually increases. Brain regions that don't normally talk to each other suddenly start firing in sync. This neurological shakeup shatters rigid, stuck patterns of thinking, allowing for new connections and insights. This boost in psychological flexibility is a key reason psychedelic-assisted therapy shows so much promise for treating long-term depression and anxiety. But, and this is a big but, it's not just about drugs. Deep meditative practices, developed over thousands of years, can achieve a similar result. Experienced meditators can voluntarily quiet their DMN, creating a state of pure awareness without the constant chattering self. The same neurological event can also happen involuntarily, triggered by sensory deprivation tanks, extreme physical exhaustion, or a profound life crisis that shatters your identity. In every case, the mechanism is the same. The brain's me network is disrupted, and the construct of the self temporarily falls apart. Section 3. Life after death. So, what are you left with when the narrator is gone? What does it actually feel like? People consistently describe a fading of self-concepts. The internal monologue just stops. Your attachment to your name, your job, your personal history, it all evaporates. This isn't like being knocked out. You're still completely aware, but it's an awareness without an I at the center. The feeling of being a separate person looking out at the world dissolves into a feeling of being part of the world. However, the experience isn't always blissful unity. Modern psychological scales measure ego dissolution on two main axes: unity and loss. The positive side, often called oceanic boundlessness, is a feeling of profound interconnectedness, love, and peace. But the negative side can be absolutely terrifying. For some, the self-dissolving feels like a total loss of control, a descent into annihilation that can trigger intense anxiety and panic, what's known as a bad trip. The outcome is shaped by many factors, including your mindset, the environment, and even specific neurochemistry, like how psilocybin affects glutamate levels in different brain areas. This brings us to the most critical point. The term ego death is really a misnomer. The ego doesn't actually die. It's not about permanent annihilation. The psychoanalyst Carl Jung called it a psychic death, a profound reordering of the mind that allows a healthier, more integrated self to emerge. After the experience, the ego comes back online, but it's often changed. That DMN reset can break the rigid neural patterns that kept someone stuck. The experience can give you a powerful new sense of objectivity about your own thoughts, a cornerstone of its therapeutic potential for PTSD and depression. People often report a lasting sense of detachment from personal drama and a more flexible, open personality. This neurological reset has massive implications for the future of mental health care. But what does it actually look like to use this process to treat severe depression or anxiety? We'll explore the clinical applications and the future of psychedelic-assisted therapy in our next video. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss it. Conclusion. Ego death isn't a mystical journey to another dimension. It's a measurable biological event. The temporary shutdown of the brain's self-generating machinery, the default mode network. It reveals that the solid, stable self we take for granted is actually a fragile and dynamic construct of the brain. The experience isn't about losing yourself forever. It's about gaining a powerful new perspective by briefly and finally quieting the incessant narrator in your head. It shows you that you are not the voice in your head. You are the one listening to it.